niece is turning 1 on the 14th.
Oh,
So soon. So like in a week.
Yeah.
Oh, little baby.
Welcome to Law and Omen.
Welcome
to Law and Omen.
It's a paranormal and true crime podcast
Where we chat about all things bad and go on several tangents, which I've now realised we do.
We try not to, but can't avoid it.
It's like 9 in the first episode alone.
You mean the first like half an hour? Of
Maybe, yes, that's exactly what I mean.
We also wanted to have shorter episodes, but that didn't happen.
Dream never realised.
Yeah,
and I don't think that was ever a very good thing to try and achieve, because knowing us, that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
It was never going to be a...
I mean, what do you have even longer notice time than last week?
No, same length. Same. Well, actually, I think it's a little bit less.
Oh.
I think last week's was 5. No, I think it's about the same, because both are 4.5 pages.
I have like, well, it's not printed, but I think mine would be just a page, maybe 2. Which is good, because, you know, when I get into the bigger stories, and maybe we'll switch.
You can give me a heads up, and then I'll take like a smaller story or something like that. I'm just always so scared of leaving anything out, because I don't want to offend anyone or have some things misconstrued or anything like that. I want to report well, and then especially with this case, and this is why it took so long this morning, because I only did my notes this morning, but that is neither here nor there. That's also why it took so long. There are so many floating stories going on in this particular case that I watched a whole bunch of videos, read a couple of articles, and a lot of times, even though it was minor details, there were still conflicting things. And there was like one article that I read that was like almost nothing matched, and I was like, what is going on here? But it was, then I saw it was an international publication, so their wires probably got crossed along the way. And especially this case, because I prepared you beforehand. This is a very sad case, and it was really difficult for me to cover. It was very sad, and I got very angry. My first sentence is literally, this is going to be a tough one. And then again, I haven't learned from last week. I just said disclaimer. And trigger warning this time, because I'm just going to say it involves a baby. So that's why it makes this case particularly difficult, is because it's such an innocent person. She didn't even have a chance to be a person yet, you know what I mean? Like, she obviously had a little bit of a personality already, but she didn't have any time to develop as an actual person. So that being said, my usual disclaimer also counts for this. I mean no harm towards anyone that I report about. I am merely reporting on information that I could gather, and it's my opinion unless stated otherwise, or it's just, like I said, information that I've gathered. And this is going to be the story of Jordan-Leigh Norton. I don't know if you've heard of that. I think I spoke about this program last week, Crimes Uncovered, which I had to switch my VPN on for to get access to the site called Demand Africa, which was weird because I switched my VPN on to the US and then it granted me access to a thing called Demand Africa. I couldn't access it just with...
That's weird.
I know, because I'm like, these are our stories.
Yeah.
The whole Crimes Uncovered, the whole series is about South African crimes.
That is so bizarre.
And there's already a couple of other things that I want to cover from there. So, on the 30th of November 2004, Natasha Norton gave birth to her baby girl, Jordan-Leigh Norton. Natasha was in a relationship, I think. This is also where things come in. I heard she was in a relationship on Crimes Uncovered, but I didn't hear anything else again from a boyfriend. So I'm not sure if she actually was in a relationship at that time, or if her boyfriend maybe just was really, really private and, you know, the whole story was more about the family and less about the boyfriend. So not 100% sure. Regardless, she fell pregnant, so she did have a boyfriend. So she wasn't sure if it was her current boyfriend's baby or the ex that she recently broke up with baby.
So it was like kind of a small gap between the two relationships.
Yes.
Right.
So apparently the split between Natasha and her ex was amicable, and there wasn't really any animosity between Natasha and her baby daddy, and his name was Neil Wilson.
Okay.
She also had the support of her family, and she embarked on this journey of being a single mom. Vernon, Natasha's father, and Jordan-Leigh's grandfather spoke in an interview with Crimes Uncovered and said that Jordan-Leigh, their first grandchild, lit up their lives and will cherish the moments they have with her forever. So Natasha was a fitness instructor and she began a relationship with Neil Wilson. He was a school teacher, but I believe they met while he was also a trainer, and I think they worked at Virgin Active. That's what I heard. So that's how they started to get to know each other. They didn't date for long, and by the time Natasha found out she was pregnant, she and Wilson had already broken up, and both of them had been dating someone else already. So naturally she told Neil that, listen, she's pregnant and there's a high chance that this baby's yours. And at first he denied it. His family even got involved and denied it. I heard that his family also said that he wants nothing to do with her and stuff like that. So I think it got maybe a little bit sour afterwards. I don't think the split itself was bad, but I think afterwards, with the imminent presence of a baby, which changes your life, I think things got a little bit sour, which is not fair, because if he made the baby, he needs to support the baby. It takes two to tango. So after Jordan-Leigh's birth, Natasha told him, let's take a paternity test. You need to take a paternity test. And apparently that's also the first time at the hospital when he took the paternity test was the first time that he met Jordan-Leigh and saw her and whatever. And he eventually took the test, and it turns out he was the dad.
That's so frustrating. So she had to go through all of the pregnancy and the birth and stuff without him.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, they're broken up, but you can still be there for appointments and be supportive.
So now the only thing they needed to figure out was how involved Neil would be in the baby's life, and obviously how much maintenance he would have to contribute. And I also read a couple of things, but it comes back later about the maintenance, that he offered to pay maintenance, but the amount he offered to pay was so little it would barely cover diapers. So they ended up going to court, but I think I do mention this later in my notes, but I'm going to mention it now because I remember it now. They did eventually have to go to court where he got mandated to pay maintenance.
Do we call it maintenance and other people call it child support, or is it just...
I think it's interchangeable. Interchangeable. Not interchangeable. Whatever I said there, it's interchangeable, So after Jordan-Leigh was born, she and Natasha would live with the grandparents, Natasha's parents. Natasha is 22 years old at this point, I think. Either 22 or 24, but I'm pretty sure it's 22.
It's still young.
It's so young. It's younger than me. I always think about that. It's so sad how I think at any point of your life it's sad to go through a traumatic event, but being so young and going through such difficult things, I can't even imagine, honestly. So Natasha is 22 at this point. Her brother Dylan is 18 and he's also still living at home. I think he had just finished matric. On the 15th of June 2005, Natasha left Jordan-Leigh at home to go to work, just a normal day, with their nanny, Rebecca Buso, and Dylan, her brother, but he was still sleeping in his room, just like any other normal day. That morning, the doorbell rang and it was a delivery. Rebecca went to Dylan and asked him about it, and he told her it's fine, she can just accept the parcel. And as it turns out, they had, I'm not sure exactly who in the household spoke to this person, but there was a call made informing them that there would be a delivery the next day. But like I said, I'm not sure who actually received that phone call saying it. But anyway, they called and said that they should expect a package, and this delivery came that day. Obviously it came with a label and everything looked legit. So Rebecca opened the door and she let the delivery person in with the package. She then called Dylan to come and sign for the package. She didn't want to sign for him, and he came down, he took the label, and Rebecca attended to Jordan-Leigh. She was feeding her in the living room, and seemingly out of nowhere 3 other men came in storming with knives. One grabbed Jordan-Leigh right out of Rebecca's arms, and the other pushed her into one of the bedrooms. I think it was the main bedroom, where she saw Dylan was already in there. I heard that they were bound together, but this also fluctuates. I heard that they were bound together back to back. There's also one source that said only Rebecca was bound, tied up. Anyway, I think both of them were most likely tied up.
I mean, you would tie up the young, fit male as well.
Exactly. Yes, so he's already in the room because he had been forced into there by knife point as well. The men then demanded to know where the safe was, and they were shouting at them, telling them, where's the safe, and they didn't know what they were talking about, and like all this time these people are shouting at them. They can also hear Jordan-Leigh crying, and when they said they don't know anything about this, the response was tying them up, like I said, and taking them to the bathroom in the main bedroom, where they were told just to stay there. That's why I think they were tied up, because I highly doubt they just put them in the bathroom and said, just stay here. You know what I mean? So
did they know there was a bathroom? Like, you just
I'm
to take the baby first and then you lead them through the house. It's very suspect.
It is very weird. Like, why are you taking, like, that's what I also, when I first watched this episode, I was like, what are you doing with that baby? Like, what the hell? Like, surely you'd want the commotion of a baby like not around you, and like keep it with its caretaker, so that at least there wouldn't be that amount of noise. But I don't know. Anyway,
it's strange.
So they tied them up, they put them in the bathroom, and all the while Jordan-Leigh was heard crying. The intruders eventually found a safe in the bedroom cupboard, and then there was a silence that filled the house, which I imagine was deafening. Like, you don't want to hear silence in that situation, I don't think. Dylan and Tobeka eventually got out of their restraints and they sprang into action, because they also thought it was now safe to come out of the room and whatever. Dylan ran outside to try and catch a glimpse of the people who did this and try and get help, anything, just he needed assistance. When he returned to the house, Tobeka ran and pressed the panic button. She went to find Jordan-Leigh. Dylan returned to the house, and the house was in absolute disarray. And unfortunately, he couldn't find the perpetrators, but he'd been yelling for help and whatever. He made his way to his bedroom, where he found his niece. Relieved at first, he quickly saw that something wasn't right and she'd been injured, and he handed her to Tobeka. And as the police were arriving, he asked them to rush her to the nearest, like, it wasn't a hospital, because when they got there, they got to the doctor's surgery, and the doctor wasn't there when they got there. Yeah, so there was blood on her neck, and there was bubbles coming out of her mouth. And like I said, when they arrived to the doctor's surgery, the medical receptionist had to tell them that he wasn't there, but she could try and resuscitate Jordan-Leigh because she was a voluntary lifesaver, and she'd done a first aid course, so she was qualified.
Well, that's helpful at least.
But unfortunately, it was too late for Jordan-Leigh. At 6 months old, she'd been taken away, like not even a chance to live her life. Like I said in the beginning of the story, she hadn't even had a chance to start experiencing life.
6 months is so young. That's shorter than the whole pregnancy. Like, that's
exactly.
Exactly. So tragic.
So, trigger warning. This is going to be difficult, so skip like 15-30 seconds. According to testifying forensic psychologist Yolande van der Heide, the cause of death was a penetrating invasive wound to the neck and the consequences thereof. So the wound itself measured 2.7 centimeters. And it even made cuts on her vertebrae. They said the knife was moved around in the actual wound. So just very so sad.
And knives are so, like, when you said they came in with knives, that's such a personal weapon. Like, I mean, I know knife crime is, like, especially in like England, it's a big problem. But knives are usually so, like, intimate.
Yes, usually stabbing, like, murders and stuff like that, or stabbing incidents, I guess, are very intimate. Because you're so close to the person, it's not like a gunshot that you kind of distance, then you're distancing yourself, I guess,
and to be that close to a baby, and
I can't imagine such an innocent little baby, and apparently she was such a light. Her grandfather in Crimes Uncovered, he said he wouldn't even be surprised if she freely went to the perpetrators, because she was such a loving little girl. She was just so trusting, and it's just sad. So Captain Esmeralda Bailey arrived and took over from the first sergeant on the scene, and she immediately noticed that the box that was quote-unquote delivered and the Weibull that accompanied it. She summoned the forensic team for fingerprints and all that. And when she started examining the Weibull, she saw it was from a company called Speed Freight. So naturally, she phoned the company, and they told her that they don't start their deliveries before 9 a.m., which is very Cape Town. But yeah, so they don't start their deliveries before 9 a.m., but this delivery had taken place before. Okay. So it was before 9 a.m. They weren't doing any deliveries that time. Something seemed very suspect.
How do you ever get another package ever in your life again?
So she was sure that this was a key piece of evidence, and she was right. And I was so happy to see that this was a female investigator. Yes. It was such a good feeling. So she found that the sender's address didn't exist.
Okay.
And that the company sending the package was also bullshit.
Okay.
There's no such thing. So she used the national phone operator to find the phone number of the company that had phoned them about the package. Okay. You know, so because they received this phone call, they're awaiting a package. Apparently, I also heard that they were told that someone's sending them a package. Like it's like a prize, a kind of, you know, it was kind of made very exciting, that type of thing. So, yes, she used the national phone operator to find the phone number of the company that had phoned them about the package. And it was a real company. A company called Dolce Lume. Never heard. Nope.
My brain's immediately Dolce & Gabbana. That's
me too. Me too. Or Dolce Leche, like caramel.
Right. We live in two different worlds. Fashion and sugar. There we go. Makes sense.
What's that word? So Captain Bailey decided to pay Dolce Lume a quick visit. She arrived to Dolce Lume and she wanted to collect samples of handwriting so that she could obviously match it to the label. Yeah. And she found Neil Wilson's particulars on a piece of paper in the desk of the only female employee in the office, Dina Rodriguez. So obviously she asked her, "Do you know this man?" And Dina is like, "Oh yeah, he's my boyfriend."
Oh, alright.
Red flag in capital letters is what I say in my notes.
So this cop is on it. Yeah. She is so great. Why couldn't we have more of her?
Just duplicate her, like Dolly the sheep.
Esmeralda detective. What?
Esmeralda Bailey. That's also such a nice name. Yeah. So she requested that both Dina and Neil meet her at the police station. And she fingerprinted Dina, explaining that at this stage everyone is a suspect. And she also asked her some questions, and she requested that she write down her answers. Yes. Obviously with the intention of getting a sample of her handwriting.
She's amazing.
And on that same day, Captain Bailey sent the waybills that were completed by Dina, that were in her office, in her drawers or whatever. She sent the crime scene waybill and the handwriting sample collected from Dina Rodriguez to the forensic document and handwriting specialist of the SAPS, Superintendent Marco van der Hammen. He concluded that they all matched.
Oh. Okay, that took a turn.
It went pretty quickly, if you think. And on the 17th of June 2005, Dina Rodriguez was arrested and taken into custody for further questioning. Nice. So, when did this happen, did I say? On the 15th of June, and she had already been arrested on the 17th of June.
That
so 2 days after this had taken place. Wow. 2 days. But she's also a dumb bitch. Like, not like I wanted her to get away with this. I just mean... She is.
I mean, there's a reason there's a show like Dumbest Criminals and stuff.
Yes, but she's also just... Oh, I hate her. Anyway. So, 2 days after Jordan-Leigh had been killed, Neil also phoned Captain Daly. So, on the day that Dina was arrested, Neil phoned Captain Daly and dropped a bombshell. Dina Rodriguez told Neil on the day of Jordan-Leigh's death that she had paid 10,000 rand for his problem to go away. So I first just want to point out that he waited for 2 days, or however long, to tell the police about this. And the psychologist that was on the show spoke and said, you know, you can't really judge anyone for their reactions in such a weird situation to be in. Like, he was catapulted into the public eye. He was dealing with shock. He obviously still loved Dina. He was dealing with a lot of different emotions and very confusing emotions at the time, and I don't think any of us truly know how we'd react in such situations. But I hope that I wouldn't keep something like this a secret. Yes. I hope that I would be able to completely, or not completely, but switch off my emotional side and think logically, and think logically about whether what I've heard is right or wrong, and it's obviously wrong, and someone needs to be told about this, you know. So
10,000 rand is not a lot of money.
Oh, we also get into who she asked and like why they probably accepted it.
Not that there's a price, you know.
No price, but
I mean, especially it's a baby, and it's
gross. So to get into Dina Rodriguez for a little bit, even though I don't want to. She was born in 1981 in Cape Town, so at the time of the murder she was 24. Jeez. She was so young as well.
And younger than the mom.
Yeah. So she was described as being driven, warm, and as being a good student. She was busy studying for BCom degree. But apparently she also grew up very sheltered, and she kept a lot of things, or she kept her relationships, in particular with Neil, hidden from her parents for a while, and they actually went on holiday together where she told them that she went with someone else, and I don't know, it was very weird.
Like the thought of going anywhere and lying about who you're with or whatever, my first thought is, what if something happens to me, I go missing, and then nobody knows?
Exactly.
So my paranoia would be like, this is where I'm going, this is who I'm with, here's this person's number, here's mine. We're not intending on straying from there if I die, if I go missing.
So Nicole Clare, South African YouTuber, who also covered this story, and in her video she mentioned that Neil might have been quite a player just before he met and started dating Dina, and also Natasha. He had been dating 3 other ladies, or there's a time where he started dating someone and then he was juggling dating 3 other, so he was technically dating 4 ladies, and one of which he had allegedly been dating for 3 years already.
How do you have the time
and
the money?
I was also thinking that. Like,
that sounds exhausting.
Time to see 4 people, like, and spend enough quality time with 4 people to make them think and chat to 4.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
that's exhausting.
Never chat to 4 people at the same time.
No, how do you keep the story straight?
I can barely chat with you, and because you're not the only person I chat to, but like I forget about my phone so often that I couldn't even imagine keeping a romance alive with 4 people. I couldn't imagine keeping a romance alive with Patrick if he didn't live with me. It just seems like so much
work. I've got 5 WhatsApp chats from some from 2 weeks ago I haven't even gotten to, and I feel so bad, but I'm also like, I don't have time to get into a conversation now.
I don't want to talk right now. I have other things that I need to do.
I'm sorry.
Or I forget sometimes. Like, do you know how many times I think I've replied to something because I replied to it in my head, and then I open my phone and I'm like, why hasn't this person replied to me? Because I've asked them a question. And then I'm like, oh, it's because I haven't replied to them. Like,
you did that to me this weekend.
Exactly. I'm like, oh my word. Then I'll be in the shower thinking, why haven't they replied to me yet? Like, I've asked the question. What is happening?
Why are we such hermits?
I don't know. Okay, so this Nicole Clare is a South African YouTuber who covered the story as well. And so like I said, he was a ladies' man and had been dating 4 women at the same time, one of which he'd been dating for 3 years. Now, after this whole situation with all the ladies, there was a short time where he met and dated Natasha. And we all know how that went down. Then Dina and Neil met at a club, and apparently it was like love at first sight. And they were basically inseparable from that moment on. Dina described herself as being completely infatuated with him in an article that I read, and this is also apparently why he kept the secret. Dana told him. Like I said, there's many other factors. So the news of baby Jordan-Leigh obviously didn't go over so well with Dina. But this is also because Neil had waited quite a while before telling her about Jordan-Leigh. Apparently, Neil, like I said, Neil wasn't stepping in to help much, barely contributing enough or offering to contribute so little that it wasn't even enough to cover the nappies. And he apparently only told Dina about Jordan-Leigh after the whole court affair. So, nonetheless, Dina was pissed. She did not take this news well. A lot of times I saw her describe Jordan-Leigh as an illegitimate child. This is 2005. Were we not a little bit past the point of like calling children born without their parents being married like illegitimate children? Like, what do you mean? It's a legitimate... What do you mean? It's there.
Yes.
It's a child. It's legit.
Yes.
Like, it is there. So she apparently raged at him and was yelling at him and making him promise that he won't be a part of Jordan-Leigh's life.
What the hell?
That he must just like pay maintenance basically and just not have any other part in her life. I don't get how you ask a parent to do that.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, if you do that, you're selfish human being, honestly.
And to do that to the child is,
Exactly. Now, my own opinion is she's emotionally completely immature, and she has a typical like spoiled child mentality. I think, and I think she was quite spoiled. I think she was the only girl. I think she had 2 brothers, and she was the only girl. And apparently, I also heard that she had a dad like wrapped around her finger. So she was probably used to getting what she wanted, even though she was very sheltered. I almost said closeted.
Closeted bitch.
She was very sheltered. I think she's still very spoiled.
And it sounds like she especially got away with men.
Yes.
You know, the men in her life. It starts with the family teaching you that. Exactly. I suppose the uncles and the grandparents were also probably very like doting.
I'd imagine so. Yeah. I'd imagine so. So she couldn't get over the fact that Neil, has an illegitimate child, like I said, and that the mere existence of Jordan-Leigh would, I guess, upset her. She even said that anytime she saw Jordan-Leigh, she would have this wave of jealous and animosity towards her. Like,
what?
Towards Jordan-Leigh. She's a literal baby. She was jealous of a baby having the baby having a father, aka her boyfriend, that is doting or could potentially be doting towards her and spend time with her and stuff. Which insane. I can't even get to like what that says about you and the amount of insecurities that you must have in your life. And no,
I mean, I can
go seek help. Seek help. Yeah, if you're jealous of a baby, seek help.
That is like beyond. Like, I can understand if you feel weird about, you know, his ex-partner because you've had this baby with that person, but to be jealous of that baby is just strange.
I can imagine it is a difficult like situation to be in. Like, now this person who he had a child with is going to be in his life forever, even though it's an ex. But as an adult, you need to navigate through those weird parts of life. Yeah. You know, life is going to be full of twists and turns. And I think the judge that was presiding over this case also said something to the effect of it's how you deal with what's being dealt towards you in life that make you the person who you are. Yeah. And that's the problem. Like, she couldn't, I guess, realize that she's the freaking adult in this situation, and she needs to look within herself why she is feeling this much amount of jealousy towards an actual baby, and heal that part of her inner child that must have not been looked after, or whatever the case may be. The fault is 100% with her. You cannot blame a baby.
And I mean, yes, he should have told her about it before, you know, they got very much involved. But if you don't want to be with someone who has a child, break up with them.
Exactly.
Go find someone who doesn't have a family already.
Exactly. And then be mad at him, not at the baby.
Yes. Yeah.
The baby didn't make herself.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's...
I see why you hate her.
Yeah. So Dana is basically consumed by the thought of Jordan-Leigh to the point where she starts asking things to Neil, like, how much would you pay to get rid of this problem?
What the hell?
And things to that effect. And now apparently Neil didn't display, according to her, the outrage or disgust at these questions that she expected. So she took this as a green light to go. Okay. That she can find a way to... I don't exactly know how he responded then, because how do you not respond to someone asking you such a question? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If my partner asked me that, I would say, excuse me, you better, I don't know, I think you need to leave, actually. If my partner started asking me how much I would pay to get rid of a baby that I had with my ex, I would have some serious second thoughts about him or this person I have in my life.
But that also plays into the weirdness of him waiting to tell the cops that he knew.
That's what I thought as well. Like, why didn't he say you're being fucking crazy? Get over yourself, become a bloody adult, and learn to deal with it, or move on.
Yes.
Then we're not meant to be together. So police identified fingerprints belonging to Zanetemba Kwada and Sipho Mfaze and Dina Rodriguez. Her fingerprints were all over the label, by the way. Also, so that's why I'm saying she's a dumb bitch.
Yeah.
And I hate calling women bitches, but she's a dumb bitch.
Yeah.
No.
She's got a really nice name though. Which is unfortunate.
I know. Very unfortunate. So her plan was literally to go to a taxi rank and approach people and ask where she can hire a hitman.
Which is so racist.
So racist in the first place, and also secondly, going to a taxi rank, these are obviously people of a lower income bracket. She was probably preying on them just as much as she was preying on Jordan-Leigh at the end of the day.
That is such a disgusting thing to do.
So eventually she found her way to Sipho Mfaze, which obviously rings a bell because they found his fingerprints, who agreed to carry out her plan for 10,000 rand. I heard on a YouTube channel, it will be listed because I can't think of the name right now, that Sipho said he agreed to the hit because he was a taxi driver. He was supporting 2 kids, and obviously 10,000 rand to him was, it is a lot of money. It's definitely a lot of money, but especially for someone of, like I said, that income bracket, I can't even imagine the temptation. That doesn't take away that this is so wrong and what he did is immoral. I can't put myself in that situation because I've never been in that situation. So
you don't know how desperate he is, how hungry his kids might have been. And again, like you said, she's victimizing people like that who are vulnerable.
She is the problem. She is 100% the problem because he probably would never have done something like this, maybe, if she hadn't approached him and enticed him with the money, with the thought of 10,000 rand. So he was only 33 years old.
So young.
He recruited 3 others to join his murderous mission. Mongezi Bobochanye, who was 23, Zanetemba Gwada, and Bonginkosi Sigenu. And I'm sorry for butchering those names, because I've listened to the names 10 times over, and now that I'm here, it's blank.
Yeah.
I cannot say them. My mouth cannot do those shapes. I don't know what's going on. So, Zanetemba and Bonginkosi were both under 18.
That is ridiculous. That's what I was thinking when you were saying the names and ages. Everyone in the story is so young.
So young. Your brain only finishes developing at 27. But at 18, your brain is nowhere near developed enough to really rationalize what you're doing. And not that I'm giving them a scapegoat or giving them a pass. I firmly believe that at 18 years old, you know the difference between wrong and right. But once again, I think the money was really, really enticing. And I think also, if you're that young and you're hanging out with people that are so much older than you, the amount of influence that they have on you, I think, is monumental. And I don't think once again, I can't put myself in that situation because I've never been. I've never been in that situation. I haven't lived their lives. I haven't had their experiences.
Yeah. It's almost like that gang thing where it's like that family sort of.
Yes.
Like that entices people to. Yes. Like, you belong, so now you have this rapport with these people. Exactly. You're basically ganging up after this hex, and there's so many factors to it. I mean, it doesn't make it right at all. There's nothing right about it.
But it's never just black and white.
Yeah, no,
never.
Sure.
So Dina told them that they should make it look like a robbery, but they must make sure that Jordan-Leigh is the main target. They set off, and at first they tried to deliver phone directories like the yellow pages.
Oh, I forgot how long ago this was. I remember when you used to get those.
Yeah. I was like, wow, how did they even expect that to work? And then I was like, no, this is 2005, sweetie.
We still had landlines. Wow.
So again, I have two conflicting stories here. Either they said that they got there and they said that the people in the house, Natasha's parents or brother, whoever, said that they didn't want the phone books because they already had them. Or the two at the door said the books were very heavy, can they come in and put them down or help them carry them or whatever. To which Natasha's mom and or her brother said, no, it's fine, they can handle it, they can carry it themselves.
How heavy is a freaking phone book? It's not that heavy, guys.
Exactly. But, like, my point is, once again, a first attempt was made, as in our previous story, in last week's story, you're given a chance to rethink what you're doing with your life. And you go ahead and you choose this again. And to me, this is a signifying factor of forethought and planning and very callous. You know, it's not just it happened in the moment or I was so caught up in my emotions or whatever. This takes planning, and that's what that's why I hate Dina so much. This took a lot of planning. This wasn't just spur of the moment, quick. Oh, I'm angry now and things are happening.
I suppose it also helps from a legal standpoint because now you can't play that like you said. Oh, it was spur of the moment.
Exactly.
There's clear evidence of forethought. You can't deny it. So that helps to convict them, I'm sure.
So they obviously told Dina what happened, and instead of having a moment of clarity to wake the fuck up and realize what you're doing is wrong, she's like, no, it's fine. She works for a company that ships packages. She'll just pretend that there will be a delivery to the Nortons. So we know now who made the phone call. Oh, and she also tried to disguise her voice when she made the phone call. But as I mentioned before, she was literally the only female employee at that office, which is a problem in and of itself.
Yeah,
but
true.
That's a story for another day.
It was 2004.
Yeah, but so stupid. Trying to disguise your voice, but you are the only woman working in that office. So we know by now how things transpired on the morning of the 15th of June. While Tabeka and Dylan were tied up in the bathroom, the gang of criminals had instructed Bonginkosi Segenu, who was 16 or 17 at the time, to kill Jordan-Leigh. So he goes into the room, Dylan's room, where he looks at Jordan-Leigh and she looked at him. And she started laughing, and doing baby things. And he said he looked at her and he knew he couldn't do it. She reminded him of his own baby brother, and he couldn't do it. Mongezi Bobochanye came in, and he was enraged at why this was taking so long, whatever. And he basically pushed Bonginkosi out of the way without a care in the world, and he pushed the knife into her neck. So
that's sick.
They then met Dina at the prearranged meeting place, and she paid them. But she only paid them 5,000 rand, and she said that the rest of the money will come at a later stage. And this was when she phoned Neil. She sent Neil a message, actually, to tell him to phone her back. And he phoned her back, and he said that when he picked up the phone, or when she picked up the phone, she was like very excited almost. Well, nervous, anxious, excited, all those
like
emotions. Yes. And basically saying that, she'd gotten rid of this whole problem for him. Bongikosi Sigenu took the stand, and I think he was either the only one to do so or one of the only ones to do so. Dina never spoke. She never testified. She never spoke. He testified that he did it because of the money, like I said, and the fact that he had never had that amount of money before. But he obviously couldn't go through with the killing, even though it was prearranged that he would kill Jordan-Leigh.
Do you think it's because he's a minor, so he wouldn't be charged as an adult or tried as an adult if he was caught?
Maybe.
So he'd get a lenient sentence if, and others wouldn't get charged then.
Maybe, but I think, as I understand it, that such a heinous crime, they would most likely be tried as an adult, yeah.
I would hope so.
Yeah. On the 28th of June 2007, the public waited with bated breath for the sentencing. Dina Rodriguez was sentenced to life in prison.
Thank goodness.
Zanetemba Gwada and Bongikosi Sigenu were given 7 years for robbery and 15 years for murder, both sentences to run concurrently. So those were the two youngest guys, and obviously Bongikosi was the one who couldn't go through with what they wanted him to do. Sipho Mfazwe got 6 months for possession of an illegal firearm, 10 years robbery, and life for murder.
Jeez, when you said 6 months, I was like, is that it?
Yeah, I know. And then Mongezi Bobotanye got 10 years for robbery and life for murder.
Okay, good.
So as far as today goes, both Zanetemba Gwada and Bongikosi Sigenu are out on parole. As those are the two youngsters. Gwada was released on the 27th of January 2017, and Bongikosi Sigenu on the 15th of February 2018. I'm going to read a quote from an article by Genevieve Serra on IOL. Candice van Reenen, a regional coordinator for the Communication Regional Office of the Western Cape for the Department of Correctional Services,
what a title,
confirmed the men were granted parole, but added that they had undergone a strict program to be ready for social reintegration. The process of parole consideration is initiated by the Case Management Committee when an inmate has served the minimum required time. A decision is then taken by the Correctional Supervision and Parole Board. It is important to note that an inmate must satisfy all requirements for parole placement and be ready for social reintegration. This draws largely from the Correctional Sentence Plan compliance and reports from specialists such as criminologists, social workers, and psychologists. So I hope that, they could be rehabilitated and that they can be reintegrated into society, because they were still very young. And look, I can't imagine what it must feel like for the family. That must be very difficult. But as someone who believes in rehabilitation of some people, I would hope that they could be rehabilitated and that.
I mean, like you said, maybe because they were so young when it happened, and because the one already had that in him to be like, I can't do this. Yes. Maybe there is some hope.
Yes. Dina Rodriguez continued to study in prison and got a degree in education.
Oh, great. Because she should be around children.
Yeah. At her graduation, she met a man who was also in prison and graduating. His name was Rian, I think, van der Merwe, something like that. Do you want to know what he was in prison for? No, you don't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. For murdering 2 teenagers.
A match made in hell.
Yeah, and apparently she's very much in love with him, and that's great.
I hate them both.
In 2013, Dina made a full confession as to why she did what she did. She basically blames it on being immature and in love, which, fuck off. To quote yet another article on IOL, this time by Fatima Schroeder, Rodriguez admits now, with hindsight, that she probably experienced the unsophisticated emotions of an immature and inexperienced woman, adult in body but not in mind.
What?
Yeah. So in her 24-page affidavit, she also claims that she didn't get the legal advice she should have, and that her trial and sentencing were, quote-unquote, marred by irregularity.
The irregularity is that you wanted a baby to be murdered.
Exactly.
There is no...
Go away.
Like, no.
She agreed that the court was correct to convict her, but she wanted the SCA, Supreme Court of Appeal, to order that she should be given a new sentence. Her attempt failed on July the 15th, when judges Robert Nugget and Malcolm Wallace dismissed her application. Also, this I literally found out right before I came here. One of her former cellmates was Najwa Dir, who, we covered last week.
Oh!
Yeah.
What?
Which
was so weird.
That was very weird. Literally the last video that I watched mentioned that.
Oh, that is bizarre.
And it was very weird. And Neil kind of drifted away into the background. Apparently he was at first more supportive of Dina, which is fucked up. But as the case went on, he became less and less prevalent, and I couldn't really find anything about him. Natasha has since had a second daughter, Kira, who is about 14 years old now.
That's a pretty name.
Yeah. She was born in 2007, shortly after Dina Rodriguez was sentenced. She was quoted saying, "The pain doesn't go away, it gets a bit easier, but not a whole lot." She also added how Kira has been the family's healer, and she still lives in the same house where the horrible event took place. I think she and Kira actually sleep in the room that Jordan-Leigh took her last breaths.
I wonder if that's just me thinking you don't want to move away because that's the last, place you had, or the only place you had memories with her,
I think so.
You're kind of close to her in a sense.
I think there's definitely a psychological reason you'd want to stay somewhere like that.
That's so sad.
And then, I just wanted to leave off with this little sentence. Natasha said Kira thinks of her late half-sister Geordie as a star in the sky, the first star that rises every evening.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
So, this is why I was so upset and so angry and all the emotions all at once, because annihilated such a young, I don't even want to say person, because she didn't even get a chance to be her own person. And because this bitch was jealous, she took her away from her mom.
Yeah. The fact that she even had the gall to appeal her sentence it shows how disgusting she is.
Oh, I forgot about this because I didn't write it down, but I also heard Dina, on the day that Jordan-Leigh was killed, she messaged Natasha saying how she's so sorry to hear about her loss and she's in her prayers.
But, she didn't know that she didn't know her because they were secretly dating?
No. I think they knew. They definitely knew about each other.
Okay.
So, Natasha and Neil had broken up already. Okay. Then Natasha found out that she was pregnant. Yes.
Sorry.
So Dina definitely knew about her. Yeah.
Because that would have been weird. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But the parents, I'm not sure how much they knew about Neil. That's where the secretive aspect came in.
That is so freaking sad. Yeah. Now that just shows how evil she is.
That she actually freaking sends them a message, knowing full well that she's the one that did that to their child.
Oh, that is so horrible. And I can imagine, as someone who doesn't have kids myself, but you have that baby, you lose the baby, and then you lucky enough to have another baby, but also because it's a girl, and every time you see that baby doing maybe something similar to what the first baby did, that must be heartbreaking, because you're so happy that you had this child, but also it must hurt so much knowing what you lost. Yeah. I can't imagine what the family went through.
And it's such a sad case, honestly. And I think I probably heard of it kind of when it happened, but I was so young that I didn't really take note of it. Yeah. And just to revisit a lot of these cases is just so sad. There's another case that I'll cover soon that I've known of, but it's just also so sad. Anytime it's anything to do with children.
Yeah, it's always tragic.
Exactly. It's always sad when someone gets killed, obviously, but children just make it so much more difficult to cover.
Yeah. Even if it's the children being the victim or the perpetrator.
Exactly.
It's bad
both is
way.
sad. Yeah, both is sad.
Oh, man.
Do you want to refill your
I do. That was the worst hour of my life. Sorry. But it's a good story to cover. We need to. And it's also, I know that not every female is got that maternal instinct in them, but for a woman especially to try purposefully harm a child, it always blows my mind. Because even if you don't want children of your own, or you're not maternal, like I said, there is that just something in you biologically.
You'd hope so, but you also get female pedophiles.
That's true.
I mean? So I think, but it is difficult for us to imagine because we associate a female role with nurturing and being protective over, especially children and stuff like that. It's just that's what I'm saying. She was just she was jealous. That's what it comes down to, and that's what angers me the most is that you can't even deal with your own jealousy against a baby.
I've never felt, I don't think I've ever in my life felt any negative feeling towards a baby. What are they gonna do?
It's also sad, not that I have any sympathy for Dina Rodriguez, don't get me wrong. I feel for her parents, obviously. I feel for everyone associated with her, but also I'm sad for what she could have been, you know, she threw away her life for what? For being stupid. No. Not that I feel sorry for, don't get me wrong, I don't feel sorry for her for being in prison or anything for what she's done.
Just cruel. At least in the story, people were sent to prison and they were punished for what they did. Because it would have been really horrible if no one actually was punished for the crime.
Or if they were let out on parole. I know 2 of them were let out on parole, but like I said,
I mean, technically they were minors when they went to prison. So.
Yes, and I'd hope that they'd learned their lesson. Hopefully they can make a life for themselves out of prison, because I also know how difficult that must be.
Thanks so much, Chanelle. I'm going to get wine because I'm sad now. Today, I'm covering Ouija boards. Alright.
I'm so scared of Ouija boards.
So I'm not going to do super in-depth because there's aspects of the story that I can cover more in-depth later. Okay. So it's just a brief history and then some stories I found. Okay. So let me start with... Sources. There's smithsonianmag.com, cultofweird.com, livesci-fi.tv, and cosmopolitan.com. But those will be in the show notes.
That's a random last one.
Yeah. I was also surprised to see it. That's what I found last night after we got home. And then I was busy looking at stories.
You're better than I.
No. So, brief history. The Ouija board was born from the spiritualism movement of the 19th century. Spiritualism was already very big in Europe when it reached America in 1848. It's so long ago already.
It is.
Yeah. The Fox sisters rose to fame in New York, with them claiming to be able to communicate with the dead and receive messages from spirits. These spirits apparently responded to the sisters through rapping, which is like knocking. Spiritualism fits in with the American culture of the day, since they could fit it in with Christianity. So it kind of, I don't know how, because in the Christianity I was raised with, you're not supposed to talk to spirits and all that, but somehow they made it fit with their belief system of the day. So I don't know what was happening in the 1800s America.
More liberal, I don't know. Liberal but racist.
Yeah.
And sexist.
Yeah, all of the ists. And apparently the practices of seances and communicating with spirits gave peace to people at that time, because the average lifespan was around 50 years old. Children died a lot, obviously sickness, they didn't have the vaccines and things we have now, and women died in childbirth a lot more, and men were dying in wars and things like that, so it was a very tumultuous time. So
disease.
Yes. And of course medicine wasn't what it is.
Also hygiene.
Yeah, very much. So there's a lot of social factors that played into why spiritualism was so comforting to them. It makes a lot of sense, So the first company to produce the Ouija board was the Kennard Novelty Company. The name, it was said that the Ouija means oui from French for yes, and oui. So it was like French, German, oui. But apparently it doesn't. What happened is they got the name when they did a seance or something, and they used the board and asked the spirits what the board should be called. And so the word came through as Ouija. So the board named itself, essentially.
I don't like that. That's like the brain.
Yeah. So there is apparently certain rules that you should follow that, help you to use it safely. Because like with any divination tool, there's safe ways and not safe ways to use it. Just because you're doing something like a spiritual practice doesn't mean you're automatically going to get demons and things like that. That's, obviously just a very Christian teaching to scare us off of learning stuff and getting involved. So the rules are, the following list comes from Cult of Weird. So I just took the list straight from there because it's pretty much just says everything I wanted to say. So the first rule is never use the Ouija board alone. Playing Ouija by yourself does leave you more vulnerable, and so you're alone. You might ask things you wouldn't ask if other people were there, and then you can attract spirits to you, or it can open gateways and all that. So it's just safety numbers kind of thing.
That makes sense.
Yes. The second rule is to not use it in a graveyard, which people seem to do. It's like
all
going
the time.
Yeah, it's like going purposefully ghost hunting in graveyards. It's so disrespectful, you know. And I mean, obviously, there's going to be spirits and stuff in graveyards. I mean, when with my birthday we did that ghost walk, we did end up walking through the cemetery, but no one was actively ghost hunting. It was part of the tour of Simonstown.
Yes.
Yeah, and then that walk, no one was doing anything dodgy. We were like walking through and just looking at the graves, seeing the cats. There was such a cute cat there. Remember? So that's different. But if you're going to take a Ouija board with the purpose of meeting spirits, it's kind of
enticing, that energy.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Like, I was already quite nervous walking in the graveyard as is, but that's just how I am. Yeah. But none of us were disrespectful or anything like that. So I wouldn't do that. No. That wouldn't even cross my mind. But I've definitely heard so many stories of people, not necessarily people I know, but people on the internet, I don't know, doing things like that online, and I always think, stupid. And it's like, you can connect with that spirit. You don't have to go to their grave. It just feels disrespectful. Like, that's your final resting place. Like, we've got so many burial traditions across centuries of, so many people have customs, because it's such a big deal to us as people, and that's your final resting place. You're supposed to sort of respect it. And maybe that's just me looking at it from like our cultural lens, but I still feel it's weird to go with the Ouija board to someone's grave. It just feels wrong to me. No, I agree. And also don't do it where a violent murder took place, because obviously that negative energy can cause bad things to come through. Number 3 is never burn the Ouija board, because you can release whatever energy is trapped in an item if you burn it. But how do you get rid of things? No, I've heard somewhere you can drown a demon, so I don't know. You can't just walk on the freaking wall. Of course. A Ouija board is said to scream if you try to burn it. Anyone who hears the board scream will have 36 hours to live. Alright. So according to sources, if you burn it, it always seems to end up back at its owner's house intact. And I've heard a few stories like that as well, where people try to get rid of it and they found it in their belongings again. I would never buy one in the first place, honestly. So the proper way to dispose of a Ouija board is to break it into 7 pieces, sprinkle it with holy water, and bury it. 7 pieces? Well, why is 7 significant? I was thinking, because like there's 7 chakras, maybe. Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's the first thing that came to mind. And of course, with holy water, it doesn't necessarily have to be like Christian blessed holy water. Like other faiths make blessed water, basically, we should call it. And then you bury it. So I think the burying it is also putting it into the earth energy and like grounding it, because if you ground yourself spiritually, you're connecting with the earth's energies, and it's like centering. It's also life grows through the dirt kind of thing, because energy can't be destroyed, you can change it. So that's, I think, where that comes through. And also it's probably safer than burning something. That's always a dangerous option, I've burned like ex-boyfriend things. Always that one. Just ruins things for a little bit. Another thing you must never do is leave the planchette on the Ouija board. Because that can allow a demon or spirit to escape from the board. Because I mean, you don't have to actually be touching it. It can, if it's strong enough, it can move whatever's on the board
to spell out things, and I'll get into that, but it can help it to escape. And also another way something can escape, or a sign that something's trying to escape, is if you allow the planchette to count down through the numbers or the alphabet on the board. So if something starts counting down, you immediately say goodbye and you get rid of that board. Yeah. Break it and bury
it.
And bury it. Yeah. Never ask.
Break, sprinkle, bury.
Yes, put that on a t-shirt. You're never supposed to ask when you will die. Maybe you shouldn't know, or a spirit could lie. It's very, possible, and that could it's just not a healthy thing for you to do in general.
How would you live life after that?
Yes, exactly.
Anyway,
so, yeah. And always say goodbye. That's like the most important thing.
That's one thing that I know, that I've never wanted to play with a Ouija board. I'm never planning on playing with a Ouija board, but that's the one rule that I know is close out, say goodbye.
Yeah.
Can't just leave it.
Yeah. So the full quote from that site is, closing the board is important as it shuts the door to the other side and prevents lingering spirits from interfering in your life. Thank the spirits and say goodbye. The planchette should move down to the word goodbye on the board. Then you can safely put the board back in its box. If the spirit does not say goodbye back, you need to once again say goodbye, then pass the planchette over the flame of a candle.
So
just like
fire energy, and cleansing energy, I guess.
And then you sage your entire house.
Yes. Always sage.
So then there is a spirit who's said to be the Ouija board demon, and it usually goes by the name Zozo.
Oh, I've heard of this before.
And so there have been several accounts of people encountering the Ouija board demon, in quotes, and the demon is said to only make initial contact with someone through the use of a Ouija board. So it can come to you in other aspects of your life, but it will first make contact with you through the Ouija board. So, yeah. Where did I see? Okay, so warning signs that Zozo, or for some of these, any negative entity is trying to come through to you, is a rapid figure 8 movement of the planchette. So again, that movements, because it's also the infinity sign, 8, So if it does that, it's trying to create that energy to come through. Rainbow side to side movements of the planchette. If the planchette spells out any of the names that are associated with this demon, which is Zozo, Zaza, Zizi, Mama, Oz, Oz, or Abacus. I think Abacus is a demon name. I didn't check that. But you can see, with the others, it's all repetitive. It's that up and down sort of movement. If you have an extreme sense of uneasiness, thoughts of depression during or after Ouija board sessions, dark shadow movements in or around the Ouija board area, sometimes it will try to befriend you. It will maybe give you correct answers about the future, but that's so that it draws you back to the board.
So that it has something to draw you back. Yeah.
Some of them may make sexual advances to the participants by physically touching or with messages. Oh, the scariest one for me is Ouija board participants losing track of time.
Oh no, I hate that. I hate any loss of time and you can't remember where it went, and not because you just crashed on the couch watching a really good series.
It freaks me out.
That's really gone. Please, never.
And another thing is a sense of empowerment. So now, because you're contacting the spirits and it's telling you maybe these things, also to draw you back, so you keep coming. So it's giving you this power so that you can power it, and then bad luck in general as well. So yeah, that's the basics. I'll maybe go into more detail with more stories in the future, but yeah, there's just some short stories that comes from the Cosmo magazine article. So yeah, it was just a list of people's encounters. So I was like, why not? Spooky. So this one's title is I Can See You Through the Window. I was about 12 or 13, spending the night at a friend's house, goofing around with the Ouija board with them and his sister. We were getting all sorts of gibberish plus words spelled out. Just kind of scaring ourselves for fun, not taking it very seriously. Mistake number 1.
Exactly.
Then we got the message, I can see you through the window.
Oh.
And then, I can see you through his eyes. Or something like that. There was just a small window in the basement room where we were, and just the backyard and woods past the driveway visible through that window. We asked it more questions, and it said, I'm under the car. So we somehow got up the nerve to go out with a flashlight and peer under the car.
Why?
where we saw a huge black stray cat hissing. We ran inside freaking out, and at that exact moment the power failed. And all the lights in the house went out. We just about actually crapped ourselves. A few minutes later the power came back and we sat up until dawn that night, scared, and never played with the board again. And that was by Reddit user no_springs.
I hate that.
That is horrifying. Okay.
But that's also why I hate the dark, and that's why I hate load shedding in particular, especially when I'm home alone. Like, I cannot describe to you the level of terror that I feel knowing we're going to have load shedding in an hour, and I'm going to be home alone and it is going to be dark. Like, there's no light, there's no nothing. Like,
no.
There's nothing worse to me. Honestly, there's nothing worse. I make sure I've downloaded something to watch or something to keep me a little bit preoccupied, because otherwise I would be scared out of my mind. I think that was a cat.
Me too. And for those who don't live in South Africa, load shedding is when the government switches off some of our power grids
intermittently.
We get a schedule.
The country.
Well, we haven't had it for a while. Knock on wood. Thankfully, through the cold winter time now, we haven't had it, so we can have our heaters. But the government just switches off our power. It's great. Yeah, and then especially when you don't expect it, or when they off schedule and it hits you while you're cooking, or it's great. That's worse than I think the Ouija board.
Silence. Oh no.
Our good friend Roger is this one's titled. I was over at a friend's house back in the early 90s. When I was born. I believe I was in 9th grade at the time. There were 4 of us, myself and 3 other girls. They kept asking me if I wanted to play with the Ouija board because they'd been talking to some dude on it named Roger. I was totally skeptical at first. I wasn't buying it. Totally thought they were moving the planchette. Until I asked the board a question that only I knew. We had just got our grades from school back that day, and I asked it what I got in science. I remember this clearly, and I know my friends did not know the answer. The board spelled out my grade. Of course, that piqued my interest, so I started asking it more questions. I can't really recall the details of that night other than the board kept calling one of my friends a bitch. It hated her.
That's not a
good sign. It was Dana. It liked me. His name was Roger, and he was stabbed to death. That's sad. At one point, I was the only one controlling the board and asking questions. It worked. The freakiest thing that's ever happened to me. I'm not super spiritual, but I've never seen anything else paranormal related, and feel that I'm a very rational person. All I know is something supernatural was controlling that board without a doubt. And that's Reddit user Ouija 1993. Great name. Ooh, gross. The case of the vanishing board. That does not sound good.
I don't like it.
We were hanging out in a friend's dorm room and busted out the Ouija board. There were a few of us who had used them before, and a few who hadn't that were quite skeptical. It was about 11 p.m. Perfect time to start. And the communication with the board was going quite well. Gary, one of the skeptics, kept calling bullshit on the whole thing. We convinced him to sit on the floor with us and give it a shot. His first question, is this for real or just a bunch of bullshit? The planchette zipped to no. Fine, he says, still not believing. Prove it. No sooner had he finished that statement when the lights in the room flickered and the building's fire alarm went off. This freaked us all out, and we left the room to follow fire alarm procedures, which means they didn't close out the session before they left as well.
I was just thinking that. I was like, no.
After about 20 minutes, campus safety said it was a false alarm and let us all back in the dorms. When we arrived back up to our friend's room, the Ouija board was gone. No one took it with us, and the room was left locked.
What? So the level of panic you must feel in that moment.
Yeah, because you were all participating. You didn't sign out. You didn't close out the session, so maybe he was antagonizing us, saying prove it. So it's I'm gonna escape the board now, and got the fire alarm thing so that. That's bleh.
That is horrific. I mean horrifying, and then I wanted to say horrific, and then I was like, no, I've already said horrific too many times.
So
cut that off.
Okay, this one's called The Spirit in the Corner of the Room, which is
I hate
every
that.
time I notice
hate that.
something moving out the corner of my eye. Okay.
No. No, thank you.
Once, right after my ex had lost his friend in an airplane accident, sad, we took the Ouija board out to use it. She was very present. She was very scared and alone and desperate for communication. Which I think would also not be the best time to use that, because you're not, like, apparently
in a good
when
state of mind.
Like, if you're sick as well, you shouldn't do spiritual communication, because
you're more vulnerable.
You're physically weaker, so you don't have, like, the ability to really handle that. So, anyway.
Sorry, before we go on. Sorry.
We stopped using it, and immediately I felt this presence in the corner of the room. Ugh. I closed my eyes to take a deep breath. Suddenly, the pointer started moving rapidly around and going too fast to spell out the words.
No.
It was terrifying. I refused to use the Ouija board again. Yeah. I immediately felt exhausted, completely and utterly drained. I lay down and had a nap. I was asleep for exactly 30 minutes. I woke up, bolted out of bed. I closed my eyes for a second to adjust myself to where I was, and I saw the spirit skeletal thing standing in the corner of the room. It suddenly rushed at my face and started screaming at me with a big, gaunt mouth. I opened my eyes and started screaming at my boyfriend to get it off me. I could feel it, so oppressive and aggressive, trying to get on or in my body. I ran from the house screaming and shaking. I don't think I ever used the Ouija board again. One day it disappeared from my bedroom. It completely vanished. I've never found it. I have no explanation for what happened to it. And
how is she so casual? How are they so casual with that?
Yeah, that's Reddit user GothSci29.
Are you still alive?
Oh, well, that's gross. Ew. The fact that it rushed.
That is. Oh my gosh. I hate that I can picture that.
Yeah, me too.
I hate that it's in my head.
So the last one, thankfully, so we can go eat some pizza and forget about this. It's called The Figure. No. Yes, it's called The Figure at the Window. When I was around 12 to 14, one girl brought a Ouija board to my friend's birthday slumber party. I was pretty skeptical but also really curious about it, as I had never used one before. We took turns answering questions, and I just figured someone else was moving the planchette. The other girls were pretty creeped out, but I wasn't until it answered a question for me that nobody else knows the answer to. To this day, I can't explain how that answer appeared, or any of the other paranormal experiences that happened after we put the board away. I truly believe that we contacted something and it stuck around.
That's my fear. That's always my fear.
Because you never know, even if you close it out, that spirit's gone.
Exactly. You don't know the strength of the spirits, and if you invite that energy in, even just for a minute, I don't know, that's why. No, thank you.
Rather not. Yeah. There were just generally a lot of small things, like footsteps above us when we were on the top floor. The door kept swinging open on its own, and the girl who lived there said it never did that on its own before. The creepiest part was that a bunch of us randomly woke up at about 4 or 5 in the morning, and a few girls saw a black figure walking down the street outside the window. Apparently, one of the girls had seen what they thought was the same figure with his face at the window on the second story earlier that night.
The second story?
Well, and that was from the Reddit user Arabella. There's 2 A's. There's actually 6 A's in that name.
Oh my god.
Like a damn. So yeah, that's my stories that I'm covering for today.
Part 1 of
Ouija boards.
Oh my word.
Gross.
I'm really terrified of Ouija boards. Like, I would never really seek out to play it.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been people who have had good experiences. They've never encountered something like this, but it's always more fun to cover the bad stuff.
I'm sure I'd rather not do it at all.
Yes.
No.
Especially if you've got that, I think, fear that you might encounter something. Maybe that'll manifest it. So
exactly. I think that'll pull it towards you rather than
repel it.
Yes.
So it's just safer. If you don't know what you're doing, don't mess with spirits. Because you, like you said, you don't know how powerful something is. You don't know what you're calling. It's like was it The Conjuring? No, I think it was in The Conjuring or one of those types of movies. There's a line that I remember. It's like, when you call out, all of the spirits here.
Yes.
So you don't know who's going to come answering. You don't know who's going to respond.
That's scary.
You know?
Oh, I don't like that.
Yeah. And we don't know the honest truth or the real facts about life beyond.
No, you won't know until you're gone.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So it might be right, it might be wrong, but it's safer to just not say.
Yeah, I just rather respect everything at a distance.
Yeah.
That's how I live life.
Yeah. Like, I don't need to speak to the dead. That's fine.
No, thank you.
It's okay. Like, I'm fine with the ghost here and there, but I don't need to go and call them to me.
I would prefer them not making themselves known in my life. Because I am scared. I would prefer to not make contact.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's probably for the best.
Oh my word.
What we should make contact with is that pizza.
Yeah, they're coming down now.
Well, thanks for listening to our third episode. Yeah.
Here we go.
And you can find us on our socials, by the way.
Yes, we haven't mentioned this before.
Yeah, we've got Facebook and Instagram, and the handles are Law and Doman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, cool. And
We'll see you next week. Or talk to you next week, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Be safe.
Yeah, that was us.
Bye. Bye.